He had already made it clear to her that no matter how things developed in the future, they would just have a normal mutual assistance relationship and absolutely not get entangled. What if she knowingly committed the crime? Then let's find an auspicious place and bury her there. Although it's a bit wasteful to do this, there's no other way. Moreover, although there are many women in this world, apart from Ivaisa, there is no one I truly cannot abandon. As for Helen's voice, whether his good girlfriend belongs to the category of human beings is hard to say now, so we have to discuss them separately. The thought of him willingly walking into the lion's den tomorrow night made him feel a little conflicted. With these thoughts in mind, Perseus returned to his apartment. After closing the doors and windows and using wind magic to block out as much sound as possible, Perseus sat down next to Ivaisa. Ivaisa nervously clutched the hem of her skirt. "Don't worry, I won't lay a hand on you without your permission," Perseus said. "It's hard to say," Ivaisa said, still as blunt as ever. Perseus magnanimously chose to ignore it, saying, "The matter with Katie is temporarily settled. Kutu will not be taking her with him for the time being. She will come with me, and she will follow us wherever we go." "How many years can this situation last?" Ivaisa asked. "Let me think, about 4 years." "Why 4 years?" "The Empire has just launched a war of annihilation. Although it has gained a lot, it has also suffered considerable losses. Before it can recuperate and absorb the new territory, it is temporarily unable to launch a large-scale war against other countries. Therefore, there is no need to send out the fierce General Kutu. This period is estimated to be 4 years." Perseus chuckled to himself. What he said is absolutely correct, but the number 4 years is not something you could just guess on a whim. 4 years later, the Empire will launch a full-scale war against the Kingdom of Infero. This was a strategy devised by the Dog Emperor long ago, and had nothing to do with the military stronghold that Jerome exchanged for Ivaisa in the original story. Of course, having it would be the icing on the cake. No, the Emperor will not give up his ambitions. He will still fight the wars, but they will be more difficult. "What can she bring us in 4 years?" Ivaisa asked. "It's hard to say. Anyway, we won't pin our hopes on her. We're just looking for a helper to do odd jobs. There's no need to worry about gains and losses, since the total cost is only 600 gold coins, and it's not even my money. We won't lose money no matter what," Perseus said with a smile. "4 years," Ivaisa said, "but there's only about a month left until summer vacation." Perseus's heart sank. Of course he knew that. He turned to look at Ivaisa's face. Ivaisa stared straight ahead, not looking at him, her face expressionless, as if nothing had changed despite all the time that had passed and all the things that had happened. "Don't worry, I've always put your needs first, but as you know, it's not something that can be done easily. I'm still working hard, and I'll definitely give you an answer before summer vacation," Perseus said as calmly as possible. "Actually, you don't need to do this alone. You just need to tell me where they're being held, and we can work together to figure it out. It's always better for 2 people to work together than for one to do it alone, right?" she asked softly. "Even after all this time, I still can't earn your trust?" "This has nothing to do with trust or distrust. It's just that it involves a lot of complicated things that I can't explain to you in a short time, and you can't possibly understand or accept it," Perseus smiled. "I know this sounds like I'm trying to fool a child, but I really don't mean to fool you. It wouldn't matter if you just told me they were gone," Ivaisa said. Perseus stared at her blankly. Ivia stretched out a hand and stared at her palm. "At first, I couldn't accept what happened so suddenly. My family, my home, everything was fine, but suddenly everything changed and I could never see those familiar faces again. I wanted to die, but under the influence of that drug, I couldn't do anything, not even die. I could only lie limply in the corner, unable to fall asleep no matter how exhausted I was, because as soon as I closed my eyes, those faces would appear before me. Before, those faces were full of smiles, but now, those faces only showed unspeakable pain and despair, and were stained with blood. They all looked at me with those bewildered eyes, wanting to say something, but no longer able to speak. Those happy memories, those unhappy memories, all the memories are like needles, pricking me densely, and the pain seems to have no end, because they keep replaying in my mind along with the memories. The clearer the memories are, the sharper and more unbearable the pain becomes. It makes me both sad and angry. So angry that I want to kill. I want to kill everyone in the world. But I know I can't kill anyone, because in front of that man, I'm so weak and powerless that I can't even kill myself. At that time, my only wish was to die before I suffered such humiliation. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to think about my family anymore. As long as I could stop suffering pain and humiliation, as long as I could die, I was willing to do anything. Ivisa's eyes glistened with tears as she smiled faintly. Thank you, Perseus. Although the way you treated me back then was a bit extreme, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have been able to rekindle my will to live. Perseus remained silent. When you told me that my mother and sister were still alive, I really felt like I had died, but in an instant, I came back to life. My heart was no longer filled with sadness and despair, but also with hope, real hope. As long as there is hope, it is worth enduring any pain and humiliation. That's why I'm no longer in a hurry to die, but want to live well until the day I can kill my enemies and rescue them properly. But later I went through a lot of things and thought about a lot of things. When I saw the blue star flower you gave me, I suddenly couldn't help but think that the meaning of my life should not be just to take revenge and rescue them. Although both of these things are important, there's another thing that is also very important. That's because I want to live. That's why I live. Although I once hated the world because I hated that man, there are still many beautiful things in this world. There's a very comfortable bed to sleep in. There's delicious milk and bread. There are very beautiful blue star flowers. Ivia turned to look at him, her expression brighter than ever before, her eyes filled with a gentle smile. And you, obedience plus 58. Current compliance level, 100. Chapter 94 failed to be completed. Faced with the breathtaking beauty of Ivisa, Perseus couldn't help but gasp. They didn't even care about the astonishing fact that the obedience level had been maxed out. Ivisa took his hand and continued. So even if you tell me now that my mother and sister are long gone, I won't blame you. I will continue to do what we agreed on before. Nothing will change, and then... She smiled shyly. Please wait a moment. Despite the breathtaking scenery before him, Perseus's remaining shred of reason compelled him to abruptly interrupt the idyllic atmosphere, and he spoke with difficulty. Miss Ivisa, although I'm glad to hear you open up and show such an open and cheerful state of mind, you don't really think I'm lying to you. Do you really think you've accepted the fact that your mother and sister are gone? Ivisa froze, and the blush on her face quickly faded. You wouldn't be thinking of saying? Perseus nodded. I'm not lying to you. They really are still alive, so you should worry about them more. Don't just think they're dead and laugh it off. Otherwise, they'll be very sad if they find out. Ivia stared blankly. Compliance level minus 58. Current compliance level, 42. Let's just assume it was a system bug. Although his heart was bleeding, Perseus was still able to think things through. After all, even Ivisa has come to terms with it. Ivisa silently released his hand and turned away silently. Miss Ivisa, Perseus called out cautiously. Ivisa remained unmoved. Baby, don't call me. After a moment of silence, she roared, threw herself onto the bed, covered her head with the blanket, and her body trembled slightly. Perseus suppressed a laugh. Actually, you don't need to do this. You have no idea how happy I was to hear you say so much just now. I wanted to hear you say that for a long time. The state of being able to live well, without any willpower, is what I most want to see in you. Ivisa trembled even more violently. Perseus lay down beside him and tried to lift the blanket. He succeeded in the end. Ivia's expression was somewhere between shame and anger. Anger towards him. Looking at her particularly unfriendly gaze, Perseus felt so frustrated he wanted to vomit blood. Hey, what do you mean by looking at me like that? What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong? Isn't it because you're always so secretive and won't tell me anything that I misunderstood? Her eyes were so fierce, they were terrifying. Perseus hesitated for a long time before nodding and sincerely admitting his mistake. Yes, it was all my fault. No apology allowed. So what do you want? Although her unreasonable behavior was incredibly cute, it also really gave him a headache. I really don't deserve to be a daughter and a sister. How could I accept their passing so quickly? Ivisa, her eyes brimming with tears, covered her face deeply with the blanket. Perseus forcibly confiscated all the blankets and forced her to sit up and look him in the eye. What's the big deal? Perseus said sincerely. People don't need to live for anyone, even if they're really gone. As long as you live well, their spirits will rest in peace. Accepting the death of loved ones is difficult, but it's a necessary part of life. Because even if they don't encounter any accidents, there will always be a day when they leave you forever. Would you then spend your days in sorrow and tears? But what do you mean by but? Perseus frowned. Look at me. Even if my whole family suddenly died, as long as I can live well, I can get over it quickly. That's the mindset everyone should have. Crying and wailing is the worst thing you can do. But your family members aren't dead yet, are they? Don't worry about the details. Details? Ivaisa was stunned. Perseus was getting impatient. Without saying a word, he kissed her, pinned her to the bed, and kissed her until she was breathless and had no time to think about anything else. Isn't this much better? Perseus asked, raising an eyebrow. You're so annoying, ugh. They really need to be taught a lesson. Why does she have to look so cute? He was already planning to let her go. Temporary. Ivaisa almost cried again, but this time she was crying from anger. She really couldn't do anything about this man. She couldn't kill him, she didn't want to hit him, and scolding him was useless. Even though he suppressed her so humiliatingly and ruthlessly took what he wanted from her, she couldn't muster a single ounce of anger. Aside from helplessness, there was only shame and anger at my own incompetence. When Perseus stopped to catch his breath, he saw that Ivaisa was teary-eyed and flushed, a rare sight of her in a delicate, girlish state. He almost couldn't resist taking advantage of her completely. However, that would exceed the limit. He wasn't sure if Ivaisa's current level of obedience to him would allow him to go to that extent. But with the current 42 points, you can already eat a lot, and it seems that you don't need to reach full obedience to eat more. Stop! I can't take it anymore. Ivaisa begged for mercy, her voice trembling with tears. Hiss! It would have been better if he hadn't begged for mercy. His begging for mercy almost destroyed all of Perseus's rationality. Then will you still dare not believe me in the future? He asked with great difficulty. I won't dare again. Do you still dare to have such wild thoughts? I won't dare again. Do you still dare to lose your temper with me? I have never lost my temper with you. I understand, but she's still not convinced. Continue. This time, he didn't stop until Perseus's lips and tongue were numb. Looking at Ivaisa again, she seemed to have lost consciousness, her gaze vacant, tears silently streaming down her face. Perseus laughed, a great opportunity. His ruthless hand began to act inappropriately. Ivia instantly regained her senses, shoved him away, and slapped him across the face. Are you never going to stop? Now everything's all right, isn't it? Perseus casually rubbed the freshly made handprint on his face. Ivaisa was almost laughing in exasperation, but she healed him with healing magic. Baby, it still hurts. Perseus's body went limp, and he pushed her down onto the bed again, his voice soft and sweet. Don't try to be a liar. I still have questions for you. Ivaisa said coldly, her face stern. But it really hurts. It's healed. There's no way it will hurt. You hit me, and it doesn't hurt my face, it hurts my heart. Ivia remained silent. That scoundrel. We shouldn't have given him even the slightest chance. Ivaisa cupped Perseus's face and kissed him. After a moment, she still asked coldly, Does it still hurt? It seems there's still a little bit. Perseus said shyly. Ivia rolled her eyes, then turned him around and forcefully pushed him down onto the bed. She took a deep breath, and then she swore this was the last time. Chapter 95, A Peaceful Day. Honey, didn't you have some questions for me? Go ahead and ask. Countless times, Perseus whispered to Ivaisa, who was lying beside him with her back to him. After that long kiss, she said she wanted to sleep without any expression, then lay down and didn't move. Perseus, however, was somewhat unwilling to let such a special moment end so abruptly and kept trying to prolong it for a little longer, because he seemed to be somewhat addicted to her lips. Precious. It's late, go to sleep. Do I have to send you to the ceiling before you'll behave? Ivia finally lost her temper and threatened coldly. But I'm still waiting for your question. No problem. You won't answer anything no matter what I ask you. How will you know if you don't try? Maybe this time I'll share some of my information with you. Nobody would believe you. Perseus silently wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, his hands remaining still and not daring to move, his face pressed against her hair. Ivaisa did not struggle, nor did she say anything. Your mother and sister are indeed still alive. They are in the secret chamber beneath the Emperor's bedchamber, Perseus said softly. Ivaisa's body jolted. Let go. But I still want to hug my baby. Wait until I turn around before you hug me. Sweetie, you're a genius. Perseus released her, and Ivaisa turned around instantly, staring at him intently, as if she were breathing fire. How did you know? She almost shouted through gritted teeth.